Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and I'm going to build a small diorama in 1/76 scale using these Tiger and Cromwell kits from Airfix. This will be a series of a few videos, and I will start by building the tanks. Of the two tanks I built, the Cromwell cost a little bit more and was a much better model. I started with the lower hull. Everything went together really well, and I found I barely had to do anything more than clip the parts off the sprue and then glue them on. There was almost no flash at all. What I found interesting was how they dealt with the tracks. The inner wheels go on, then the single plastic track piece goes on, and then the outer wheels go on. Infinitely better than the rubber tracks you get in some kits, and you get a much better gap-free result than you do with the two-part plastic tracks that you get in other kits. I began working on the upper hull. There were quite a few extra details to add, but fortunately the instructions were quite clear and easily understood, so even with all the extra bits to add, building this kit didn't take very much time at all. The only problem I had was handling some of the tiny pieces such as headlamps, the shackles on the front and rear, and the trailer hitch thing, though that is more because I'm a giant and have fat fingers. This is why we have tweezers though, so no big deal. There were some gaps on the angled pieces that attached to the side of the engine deck, but I'll probably fix those with green stuff later. Also, the rear side mudguard or dust guard things, whatever they are, were a bit too tricky to attach, so I omitted them completely. After looking at photos of real Cromwells, I decided to leave the front ones on. The turret went together as easily and quickly as the hull did. My only issues were that I dropped the tiny little lamp that goes on the side of the turret, and that I didn't like the two-part muzzle brake. It probably really could have been casted as a single piece, and it would look better. Overall though, I really like this model. Now to build the cheaper and not so great Tiger. This kit seems to have a higher skill rating, being a 2 compared to the Cromwell's 1, which seems backwards to me. It was a great deal easier to build, though maybe it's because of all the interleaved road wheels. They are a bit annoying, but not too hard to deal with. I really don't like being negative, and it is a bit silly to expect a lot from a kit that cost about $10, but it really isn't great. There was a lot of flash on most of the parts, and the detail is rather lacking. It was at least very easy to build, and the instructions were just as clear and easily understood as those of the Cromwell. My plan for the diorama was initially to have the Tiger ruining the Cromwell's day, but this kit really can't be used as the focal point of a diorama, so I've altered my idea and reversed the roles. The thing I liked least about this kit is the rubber tracks. These are the worst kind of tracks. They don't look good, they don't really fit very well, and they're a bit of a pain in the dick to attach. On this kit they're tight enough that they bend the idle wheels forward so that it looks odd. As you see here, I'm adding all the details of the model, including the hatches and the gun. They aren't awful, and they do fit after a bit of cleanup. It just doesn't look great. It lacks things like tools and towing cables that should be all over the tank. To be fair, it wouldn't be hard to add these things myself, but I wouldn't really bother at this scale. I think this model is probably more suited to children or beginners. That said, I'm still going to use it because it isn't 100% horrible. Now to give these models a quick spin on the turntable. You can see the Cromwell looks really crisp and neat. It has great details, and I think it's going to look really good once it's painted up. I'm excited to begin. I think this kit might be a much newer one than the Tiger. The difference between them is like night and day. And now the Tiger. I really don't like to be negative, but if both tanks were like this, I wouldn't bother with the diorama. It does look like a Tiger, but it isn't very convincing, and I'm not overly excited to paint this. I'll just give it a simple paint job, and it will mostly be hidden by walls and bushes. The plan for the diorama is to have the Tiger here in an ambush position between two buildings, like so. Its commander is probably kind of silly, so he's allowed this Cromwell to sneak up behind him and put a couple of shells into his engine. Pew pew! Wiggling my fingers here represents fire, by the way. Thanks for watching. Farewell.